Hi guys, and welcome back to the next video, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Something not in Minecraft, but Minecraft adjacent. And that is, I'm going to be ranking every single SMP I've ever done. We're talking about X-Life, we're talking about Crazycraft, we're talking about Third Life. If you can think of a main series SMP I've done on this channel, it's in here. So, how about we jump right into it? Okay, so as you can see here, we have our S tier ranking. So we go S, A, B, C, D, E, and F. Now, my hope is that none of my series will end up in an F tier, but I can't promise that. Now, starting with Origins SMP. Now, Origins SMP was a modded series where we used the Origins mod, and I did it mostly on stream, but I also did do a couple YouTube videos. It's also where my Starboy Origin skin kind of came from, which also led to a lot of really cool space art. Mainly because while I loved using the Star Origin, it did get a little bit repetitive, which is where a future series idea came from, was sort of the idea of changing that. Also, the server had like 3 resets and never really continued. It just kind of would always start and then die again. So for that, I think a B tier is where it deserves. And now, speaking of the other idea, it's Afterlife. And it was basically, I'd been saying for Origins, I thought we should do like a Freaky Friday event stream, where like we all log on and we've sort of swapped different Origin powers and just sort of did a stream seeing how people interact with that stuff. I thought it'd been fun. So when that wasn't happening, Afterlife came in. The idea that every time you die, you got a new Origin kept it fresh. And I really like that one. I think I'm going to put that in A tier. S is like the creme de la creme, holds the best place in my heart kind of thing. And Afterlife is up there, but it is not perfect. Next we have Witchcraft, and Witchcraft's a really interesting one because it is an old series, and it was a series I remember I think we did after Crazycraft or something. We like finished one of our main group SMPs, and I remember then asking everyone like, would they want to do it? What would people think about doing something like this? And everyone who obviously played in it was like, yeah. But there was a few of the usual regulars, like Lizzie and Joel, weren't interested because they were kind of tired of just doing the series we just finished, which was fair. And I wasn't sure how it would do, but it turned out to be a cute little fun time that everyone kind of enjoyed. I'd say there was a lot of funny moments and it was a cute idea, but Cutecraft. But I think a B tier is good. There was nothing wrong with it. It just didn't like scream out or stand out kind of thing. Okay, now we have Secret Life. Now, Secret Life was a lot of fun. It's where Jem and the Scots came from. It's the, was it 4th, 5th thing in the Life series that we do, where we all got given tasks each week, which is a lot of fun. I think I'll probably, again, put that in B tier. The tiers aren't currently, like, organized in a specific order. They're all just, like, equal at the moment. And I think that probably makes sense. Like, I know there's someone out there that's like, oh my god, Secret Life was my favorite, how could he do that? And so I'm imagining that all of these series will probably be one person's favorite. Well, I hope some of them might just have no one. But I think a B tier is where it should be. I don't, because the other issue is like, I love all of the Life series. I could end up just putting them all in like A tier, but I don't want to do that. I'm trying to be critical. I'm trying to be smart. I'm trying to make this a video over 8 minutes in time length. Wildlife, I think I'm going to give an A tier, and the main reason for that is I think it's spawned a lot of really interesting stuff with like the Quizbot and the snails, and I think there was a lot more fan involvement. As I mentioned last weekend, and I got given so many snails. There was people coming up with robotic snails, like they were driving them around. I got given a crocheted snail, I got given a big snail, I got given like a little ceramic snail. It was insane. The snails have taken over. And for that, I think Wildlife deserves to be up there. Then we have Last Life, which was the one I won. So that is, of course, going to go in A tier. That is purely to inflate my own ego, though. So, Third Life, the series that started all. I actually think I'm going to have to put it in S tier. Without Third Life, we wouldn't have had any of the other ones in the series. And I think Third Life was such a like weird learning phase for us all, because it was the first time that group of creators all kind of were doing something together, and people who obviously worked together, like I'd worked with Jemmy and Joel, like I knew Grian, like the Hermits all worked together, but I think it was the first sort of series where we'd all come together like that, and there was like fun little awkward teething learning phases of like figuring out how each other work, which we just don't have anymore. Like by the time we were doing Wildlife, we're all just like, hey guys, been so long, what have you been up to? Like just acting like we're besties. But Third Life will always hold a special place in my heart for that reason, because it introduced me to so many of those amazing people. Limited Life I'm going to put A tier. And the reason for that is I think I really enjoyed having so much freedom with deaths in that series, because so often with life series, with us having such a limited number of lives, it's harder to risk doing things without fear of losing something. And funnily enough, Limited Life was the only time we weren't limited in that same capacity. So for that, I think I'll put that in A tier. Double Life, I think I'm going to put it in B tier. Now, I know I had my whole arc with Pearl in this series, and I also had my love with Cleo and divorce quartet and all of that stuff. But I think, again, I can't then just have all of them in like A tier. So I'm trying to be strict with some of them, and I think that's where Double Life is going to go. I think it was a really interesting concept. I just think it's something that, like, one of my favorite things about Life series are all the groups it can kind of form that you wouldn't normally expect. And I think Double Life kind of limited us all into being like, you're with this one person. And I think it's nice when we can do big groups like I did Gem and the Scott. For Wildlife, I had Cleo, Pearl, Impulse, and Bigby. Like, it was a nice dynamic having more people. Now we are on to another life, but this is actually X Life, and this was from before a lot of the actual Life series stuff. So there's a lot of life-related things. Try not to get too confused. So the concept with X Life was we all started on 1 heart, and then as you died, you went up to 2 hearts, up to 3, up to 4, and it sort of made a really interesting dynamic of us all trying to like stay at the low hearts when we could. It was a modded series. It was also the series where we kind of added like Catherine, Fripp, and Jimmy to the group, which was a nice dynamic. And I think for that, I'm going to give X Life an A tier. Now, I know this just says CR for you all, but this is a series we did years ago called Funcraft. And Funcraft followed on from, I think, Trollcraft. This was in our craft era for SMPs. And it was a really fun one because it was a series where Lizzie was constantly coding her own mods and doing all of her own custom stuff. So it meant that our videos were really unique and the mod pack was really unique to us. And it meant Lizzie was able to add in things that we all would want, like Disney things and the random rainbow chicken dungeons. And it led to a lot of hilarious, weird things that I don't think we do nowadays, which was a fun time. So for that, I think I'm going to put Funcraft in B tier. Now, this one is actually the Nether Versus series, which is a series Jimmy did. There was like a group of like 4 of us. We basically had to complete a bunch of challenges in the new update, which was the Nether update, the fastest basically, and so you could complete the most by the end of the series. And it was a fun time, but I think because it was a shorter content, there was less people in it, I think I'm going to put it at C tier. Now, Empires, there is only one place that this series can go, and that is going to be S tier, the top of S tier. I don't think I've ever had a series follow me like Empires has, both from a viewer standpoint and from a like personal standpoint. Like, I literally have the Empires 1 version of me as a plushie. Empires was always a really interesting one because it kind of was a series that pivoted. It sort of turned into what it was, but that wasn't our intention. And I think there was something really genuine about that, where when we started the series, we planned it to just be, hey, you've got your own kingdoms, your empires, we all have resources we trade, and like that'll create conflict in little bits, and that's kind of it. But instead, it ended up turning into this really intricate depth series with like story and lore and character beats that like none of us were really expecting to do. Like, I literally sang a musical number with Lizzie. Like, I have a song on Spotify that has nearly 4 million plays. That's crazy. Okay, so the next one we have here is Legacy SMP. And Legacy is an interesting one because it isn't one that was a particular big staple within my, like, channel per se, but it is the series that I then met Gem, Pearl, Sausage, and Whip. Because before Legacy SMP, I only knew Jimmy and Catherine from that server. And I'm so glad that it did happen that way because it allowed me to meet people who I genuinely call some of my best friends today. But from an actual SMP standpoint, I think a C tier is probably where it should go. Now we have New Life. And New Life is always a weird one for me because New Life was my last, like my most recent attempt at organizing an SMP and doing a modded thing. And I think continuing the idea from Afterlife as like a sequel but with some changes, and I think it had a really good bond structure for a series. The issue was the mod pack wasn't stable. That's sometimes a problem you run into with modded Minecraft, and what ended up happening was the server would crash quite often. the game itself you could only have open for a certain amount of time before it would have like a RAM leak break. When a server is kind of a problem to get on, it kind of stops people wanting to play. And that ended with it kind of dwindling out. I'm glad that I rounded off my series and finished it, and I'll always hold a special place in my heart. But I think because of the fundamental like failure it kind of ended up being, I'm going to have to put it in D tier. And that's coming from the person who made it. I still love it. I love every series I've done. It also wouldn't be really interesting if I had all of the things just in like S through B tier. That wouldn't be fun, guys. Next up we have Rats SMP, and Rats is a really interesting one because Rats was the first series I did that was primarily a Twitch series, and was a series that I've never had do better on Twitch. There was something so unique and new about a bunch of us playing in a server, but like being these tiny little rat characters, it really changed how you would like structure the idea of a series and how you played it. So I think Rats is going to be another S tier for me. I think it's going up there. Now we have Empires 2, and like everything in life, it's really hard for a sequel to be better than the original. I think we did a really good job at trying to. We had so many fun, amazing moments, like the Hermitcraft crossover. It was really cool doing whole other empires. We all kind of built a bit closer, or most of us did, so like I could see Joel all the time, which was a lot of fun. And really bad for my like self-esteem and building talents, but either way. I think I'm going to put Empires 2 in A tier. We all came into Empires 2 quite quickly after Empires 1 because we were all so hyped and such from just ending off Empires 1. And I think the issue ended up happening was we realised the fun we had with telling stories in Empires Season 1, that we decided to then try and do even more stories in Empire Season 2. And what that ended up doing was causing a lot of our stories to be already pre-written, which meant it was hard to like mingle and intertwine and talk to each other and kind of incorporate each other into stuff. So for that reason, I think it will sit comfortably at an A. Now we have Pirates SMP. Pirates was one that really didn't make it much onto the actual YouTube channel, so you might be watching this being like, huh? What SMP? But if you're a Twitch viewer, or you did watch one of those two videos, you do recognise that this was another series I did where we were all pirates. We had a custom built world by the people at Pow Creations, and I did have a lot of fun with that series. I think it just ended up being a series where the world was quite big, so we didn't get to interact as much as we liked. And the constant exploration and less building focus didn't really fit like how I play Minecraft. And I eventually did find ways to do that. But I think because of that, and again, love all the series I've done, I think I'm going to put Pirates in C tier. Now we have Trollcraft. It's really interesting because if you're one of the people that like watch these series, you're probably able to recognize what the logos are just from the little snippet you're seeing. But if you're new, you're just like, all I'm seeing is LLCP. Trollcraft was the series we did after Crazycraft, and it was a good follow-up with another fun, wild mod pack, and it's definitely a mod pack that I think wouldn't really exist nowadays. That kind of like over-the-top crazy weird creatures that looked so odd doesn't exist anymore in Minecraft, really, and I think that holds like a nostalgia reason for me. But I think also out of the craft series we kind of did, I think it's probably my least memorable one. Like, I lived in an up house and I built a zoo. That's kind of the main thing I remember there being, also a lot of chocobos. But for that, I think I'm also going to add it to C tier. Now, I was debating putting this next one on because I don't know if it really counted as a SMP, because while it was done with me and my friend, and we had other creators join us for parts, it was a roleplay series called Fairytale Fallout. And it was this idea that it was a bunch of fairytale characters that you knew, but like twisted. So like, instead of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, it was Snow White and the Seven Cats. It really was a different time of Minecraft, and it's not something I think I could do anymore. But it does hold a weird special place in my heart, which is why I wanted to mention it here. And also for you real OG members, you remember this. You were there. So I think for that, I'm going to put it in C tier. It allowed me to explore storytelling, which, if I'm being fully honest, was just because at the time I was really obsessed with Once Upon a Time, like the TV show. And I was like, how can I do my twist on that? And that's kind of where Fairytale Fallout came from. The next one I have is Minecraft's most recent SMP, which was Minecraft SOS. And Minecraft SOS was a series we did last year, but we did it as like a limited run series. So we had a kind of end date roughly in mind. And it was a really cool series. I think my It was the best example of my most recent like building ability. I spent a lot more time focusing on like the surrounding area, the landscaping, the terraforming, and I think it was a really fun series. Getting to do all the different tasks we had each week was so fun. Getting to be on a server with a bunch of people who I love making content with was a lot of fun. So I think I'm going to put SOS at an A tier. Chamber of Iris. Now this was a modded SMP that kind of had a magic focus around it, but I'm going to be so real. I really can't remember much other than that. I know it was a long time ago, and I know I played and streamed it. But that's about it. So for that, I think I'm going to have to put an E. Now we have Caves and Cliffs Versus, and this was the follow-up from the Nether Versus series, which I think it was me, Jimmy, Catherine, Whip and Sausage, I think, was the ones for Caves and Cliffs. And like before, we had a bunch of tasks we needed to complete, which were all themed around the new update, which was Caves and Cliffs. I think I'm probably going to put this one in a D tier. I think, again, it was just a following up premise of Nether Versus, so there was a bit more like, we've done this before kind of energy. And other than knowing that I won, and I remember Whip and Catherine chasing me, trying to murder me for an axolotl, that's pretty much where my memories of that series go. Now we have One Life. Now One Life was a big one. Yeah, that funny, big one. And this series was years ago, and actually was the predecessor for X-Life, which was a modded SMP that we did where we had one life. If you died, you were gone. But it was modded, so we had really strong armor, ways to kind of add extra hearts, and ways to obviously avoid that. I think for me, One Life is probably going to go on an A tier. I think it was a really fun concept, but I think X-Life kind of evolved it in a better way. So I think One Life sits comfortably where it is. Then we have Summer Camp. Now, Summer Camp was a short summer-based SMP, and I remember doing it with my friend Brett, the same person I did Fairytale Fallout with. And it was also where I'm pretty sure I met Jimmy. It was a lot of fun. Again, the only thing I really remember is they had a really cool grappling hook mod, and I just swang around, I feel like I was Spider-Man. So for that, I think I'm going to settle it in D tier. Now, next up we have Harmony Hollow 1, 2, and 3. Well, I think it was actually 2, 3, and 4, because while I was originally in Season 1, I ended up not doing it, because I then got invited to Crazycraft, I think. And I didn't want to, like, not commit to a series and just be inactive, so I just didn't do it. I'm going to put Harmony Hollow 1 at a B tier. Harmony Hollow 2, I think, is one of the occasions where the sequel ended up surpassing the first one, because Harmony Hollow 2 is where I did a whole vampire hunter versus vampire arc with my friend Jack Sucks at Life, where he was a vampire and I was the hunter, and it sort of turned into this big server war of like people wanting to be vampires, people wanting to be the hunters team to keep it balanced, and we did a lot of fun things with that. So it's always a fun memory I have. And then Harmony Hollow 3, I think, not as good as the previous installment, and I think for that reason I'm going to put it in a C tier, because other than being this part of the series and generally being a fantasy Minecraft mod, I really don't remember anything with it. Maybe the reason I can't remember things is just because I'm getting old, rather than the series being bad. Because like, I turned 30 this year. But anyway, it's probably just the series. So we are getting to near the end here, and we're going to have The Deep End, funnily enough, as our next series. Now, The Deep End was a really interesting... ended up having sort of like a bunch of big creators from all over, where like, you had like myself and Lizzie and Joel, who I usually do content with, but then we also had like Stacey Plays, the Funny and Crew, Afmau. There was just so many different areas of Minecraft that all kind of were on this one server, and it just was a really interesting time because it's not something that kind of happens like that anymore. So I think for that, I'm probably going to put The Deep End at a B tier. So now we have Crazycraft, and Crazycraft is a series that if someone comes up to me at an event and tells me they remember me from that, that's how I know I'm old, and was sort of the first thing that kind of started my channel. I'd been making content before, but it was the first SMP content I got to do with a bunch of my core group, and it sort of skyrocketed my channel and was sort of the first step for it, which was nice. And because of that, I think I'm gonna have to put Crazycraft in S tier. There were so many like wild moments. We had a Crazycraft war where it was like CPK versus Ollie, and we were on different teams. There was Godzilla. It's also where like Lauren and Joey kind of came into the friendship group. They joined in that series. and just all in all was a sort of wild time to remember, but a lot of fun. Then the follow-up of that is Crazy Aircraft, and it was a same mod pack people, but like the second one. And I'm going to be so real with you all, I can barely remember. I don't even know if I did the series. I just know I had the logo installed in my logo folder. Let me check. Did I? I did. We did do Crazy Aircraft. But the fact that I couldn't remember we did Crazy Aircraft probably isn't a good sign. So for that, I'm going to put it in D tier. Like, I'm looking at these thumbnails from 5 years ago, and I genuinely, like, was this me? Was it? It must have been. I just don't remember it. God, maybe I am getting old. And to end it all, we have Witchcraft, which was an SMP I did last year? 2 years ago now? They all blend into one. 2 years ago now. With a bunch of different content creators where we were all witches. And it was a sort of 8-week mini-series where we had to sort of compete in this tournament at the end to see who was the strongest witch that would take over. And again, I won it, but it wasn't because I won it that it's one of my favorites. It's because I got to like explore with like being a bit darker and like deeper story stuff and like not my usual personality or build style. It was really fun to experiment with. And for that, I think Witchcraft is going to be an S tier for me. I got to mess around with magic stuff, which I always love. And you all seem to love it as well, because the series performed so much better than kind of I think any of us were expecting it to. And that was just a lot of fun. Well, there we go. This is the final tier list. Again, I'm not doing it in particular order, though probably Empire's one is actually one, but the rest of them are all just mixed around in their respective tiers. But I've told you all my favorite SMPs, but I'm sure your tier lists would all drastically differ from mine. So let me know in the comments down below what your favorite series I've been part of is, and let me know some of your favorite moments from it so I can also remember them. Because apparently memory is something I'm having an issue with now. But if you enjoyed the video, remember to leave a like, comment down below, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss when I upload a video, and I will see you all next time. Bye!